Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Minim Dag Noore is a script used to write the More language, or Mosi, in Burkina Faso, here in West Africa, to get a sense of where we're at. Uh, Majority of the native speakers are in the central regions of the country, but they're also widespread in neighboring countries such as Senegal, Mali, Niger, Ivory Coast, Ghana, etc., etc. Surprisingly, I found that the script was even used in Gabon, south of Cameroon, which was a bit surprising for me, but I guess that means the script is still spreading. It's a very, very recent script, much more recent than other historical West African writing systems created just 20 years ago. I think this November is like the 20th anniversary. So if y'all want to celebrate drinks tonight for that. It's created by this man, Hamadi, who I talk with a lot more than I thought I would. Uh, he created it 20 years ago after a lot of scholarly study, traveling throughout West and North Africa, places like Mali, in Timbuktu, and Gao, and in Morocco, Mauritania, places like this. A lot of centers of Islamic scholarship in centuries past. And yet, currently there's several thousand users, primarily in Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Mali, etc. And below his picture here is his name in four different ways to write it in the script. And hopefully, at the end of the presentation, you'll figure out how to read this and why there's four different ways that you can write his name. Um, this is it's a newly invented script used in informal schooling in Burkina Faso. There's quite a number of books and materials, both printed and handwritten in the country, using the script for More language, but also for Arabic language, surprisingly. Because a lot of people in Burkina Faso are Muslim and they learn Arabic or speak Arabic fluently to various degrees. Um, there's also online material that people upload and enjoy. A lot of this is very hacky kind of way because it's not in Unicode, but still they're pushing past their limits. But of course, everything starts in the informal schooling that people attend from various ages. There's people as young as these children, but there are also elder people that have actually shifted from this Ajami way of writing the language, which Ajami is like a modified Arabic orthography. A lot of African languages used starting maybe a millennia ago. And a lot of people also get these certificates from these informal schools, and they can become like these kind of authorized, like certified authors to make sure that like any publications put forth are, they have the stamp of approval if they have this certificate. Um, and yeah, so now we're going to talk about the structure, which is the entire point of this talk. I'm not a historian, so the previous two talks were very, very interesting, but this is basically, I'm going to teach you the script because I don't really know another script historically or these neographies that work quite like this. Um, there's a right to left version, there's a left to right version of the script. These are just three letters in the script. It's also bicameral, meaning there's uppercase and lowercase characters. So if you just take a single phone name, there's four different ways to represent it. The reasoning why it's bidirectional, it's not clearly stated why it is this way. There are some assumptions that I have after talking to like independent people that use the script in the community in different countries. One suspicion I have is because More in general, at least since the late 1800s, after French colonial rule came to West Africa, the Ajami script was supplanted by Latin representation of the language. So for about the past 100 years, people were writing their language in Arabic, right to left, but also in Latin script, left to right. So that's up for debate, but that's my leading theory as to why all this mess exists in the first place. Um, eh, but yeah, so here's an example. The top two lines is a sentence and that's going left to right, and the bottom is the exact same sentence going right to left. Um, the interesting thing about this community is you only write it one way. You either write right to left or you write it left to right. And the weird thing is there's no like psychic backlash whenever like one person reads a direction that they don't normally write. So like certain communities in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, I've talked to some people where they show me like their classroom, and one person is like doing homework, and then the teacher assigns the questions in right to left manner. And then a student can respond in left to right, and then the teacher has no problem grading whichever direction the students are writing in. And it's the same thing with like people writing letters to their friends or family. They do learn both grapheme forms in both directions, but primarily, if your teacher teaches you one way, that's how you're going to write it in the future. Which, and if you know of another script like this, please tell me because I can't think of anything. Um, yeah. So there are these base vowels, I say, in the script, a, u, and e. There's a lot of similarities with the Arabic script in this regard, where, yeah, I don't know how many, I know at least one guy, wherever he was. Am I blind? Anyways, one guy was talking about Arabic earlier. So hopefully you guys can catch on to this. So these letters in Arabic, they are considered just regular letters in the abjad, but also they have several other purposes like vowel elongation, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot of parallels between the top three letters in Minim Dag Noore and these Arabic letters. One similarity is that in More there are a lot of vowels. It's one of the most phonologically rich West African languages for their vocalic inventory. To write vowels separate from a, u, and e, you use these diacritics, and they will modify the way that the vocalic realization of the letters. So, for example, you have the diacritic on the left here, and then this on a, u, and e, and then it will produce a certain vocalic value. And depending on how you change the diacritic on top, will change the value of a, u, or e to related phonemes to the base vowels, like so. And this is just an example for a. So depending on which diacritic you put on top, it changes the vocalic value. And the interesting thing is, so in the first column on the left, that's titled RTL, which is right to left. You'll see the diacritics on top, and on the last column on the right, LTR, like left to right, you see that while the graphemes for the base vowels are different, the diacritics never change their orientation. They're always fixed in one place, which is one of the not inconsistencies. It's just the peculiarities of the script, where there's so many things that are mirroring from one direction to the other with the base vowels, or for the base graphemes, but the diacritics are always fixed. Another similarity with Arabic are these allographs. On the bottom here, you'll see two letters. The top one is U, and the bottom one is E that we just saw. In word initially, these are always like semi-vocalic values, something like W or ya, W or Y in the English language. But if you want word initial vowels, pure vowels, which are very rare in the Mori language, this only occurs very, very rarely either for onomatopoeias or a lot of loan words from French or Spanish, whatever language has influence in the region. So, for example, in the first row that's labeled RTL, this is a word initial U. And if you compare it to the U on the left that I showed earlier, you can tell that it's derived from the same base grapheme. But the community uses this to denote this word initial vowel, vowel. The same thing with the E here. And you can see like a Latin representation at the bottom, except for this like talking steel thing here. But this reads Eritrea, which is Eritrea, the country in East Africa. This is because it has this E initial at the word, and this is just This is you know how we say like it's just an onomatopoeia, or it's just not a real word, but they transcribe it as you say it in speech. And of course, there's also a left-to-right version. In this case, they're very much mirrored. There's not much differentiation between the actual shape of them, going from one direction to another. And earlier I said that the script is bicameral, so you can. Okay. Oh, it's this. And so there are also uppercase versions of these word initial vowel allographs. Interestingly, these look a lot like the capital version of the A symbol. So there is some consistency in in how they look. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Um, there are also word final vowel allographs, and I think slowly you'll start seeing some parallels to Arabic as time goes on. Interestingly, in the word final allographs, there the vowel a is also represented. Previously, it was only u and e, and there aren't really any corresponding uppercase versions in this scenario. And the whole thing about being bicameral for this script is interesting. You know, in English, we'll like for my name, I'll capitalize the O, and then the rest of the letters are in lowercase. But in this case, in this situation, the cases never mix. Um, so, for example, here you'll see the national anthem of Burkina Faso in the Maori language in lowercase letters, left to right. And then here's the exact same text for the national anthem. Also same direction, but in uppercase. Um, the the reason this exists also is kind of a mystery, but it's probably due to the fact of when something is considered like a special case. For example, this script also has two sets of numerals. One of them is used in everyday life. Another one is used in more religious texts of texts about supplication. We're talking about any kind of Quranic text. A second set of numerals will be used. In a lot of cases, this, for example, is just an example from the community to show the differences in the scripts for the same piece of text. But normally, what I've found, at least going through the material, is uppercase corresponds, or rather, it appears a lot more in non-mundane texts. And the interesting thing about uppercase, we saw this on a previous slide. The interesting thing about uppercase is sometimes they look similar, but oftentimes they don't. But the weird thing is how you actually write out vowels using uppercase. So earlier we saw with lowercase, you just have one of these base vowels, or u, or e, and you put this vowel diacritic on top to change the vocalic value. With uppercase, it's a bit of a puzzle when I first started looking at this. So on the right here, you see this letter A that we've been seeing over and over on the previous slides. To the left of that, you see this little like line underneath this dotted circle. This is mastirga, and this represents the A vocalic value. So here's an example. This is a uppercase word going right to left, and we're going to go through three components of this word that I've color coordinated, green, red, and blue. Here is the lowercase equivalent. So it's the exact same word, but written in lowercase. And you can see how in the capital version, you see this green like circle with a line through it. That corresponds to that green letter on the bottom. And then the same thing with A in the lowercase corresponds to this vowel marker, I say, in the uppercase version. And then the blue is some effect it has on the value. In this case, it's elongation. And here's a Latin equivalent for us to understand. So the capital green on the top is equivalent to B, and then the underbar is equivalent to the letter A. This is just in the case of the letter A, I'll say, but the same applies to the other two base vowels, U and E. So in this case, I'll change these. I was so happy I found a word that has all three vowels in this, actually. I was super hyped for this. So the same word, but if you look at the beginning of it, again, right to left, and you'll see how the dot underneath represents this U sound. And the same thing in the lowercase version. And then in the Latin equivalent, you see that the letter U is what that dot represents, this U. And the same thing applies for the final base vowel E. Yeah. So this little hook below the green, and then it's equivalent to E, right in the lowercase, and then I with the tilde in the Latin equivalent. So they treat the uppercase vowels the same way, or at least I think they treat them as diacritics just in a different sense. Instead of actually writing out the values, this is even more so closer to the Arabic, which is kind of weird because the lowercase looks more like Arabic. It's very cursive, it's very calligraphic. And there's also a lot of similarities that exist in the script. These are all of the lowercase letters. There are kind of three categories that you can classify the letters as. And this is just not some established taxonomy. This is just what I've looked at. There are a lot of mirroring letters on the in the left table. They look very, very similar to each other, just flipped 180 degrees. And there's also some unique letters where there might be some similarities, but they don't really fit the other two categories. And then oftentimes the right to left or the left to right version, they look very, very similar. There's almost no distinction other than perhaps like a tail going in the direction of where the text is headed. So I was really interested in if there were any influences from other West African scripts. So I've kind of just narrowed down all of the West and North African scripts that might have influenced the script. One based off of language contact, especially because a lot of these countries are multi-ethnic, so everybody lives together. But also because, as I said at the beginning, the creator of the script, he had extensive travel throughout West and North Africa. So I wanted to see like what might have influenced him on creating this. The weird thing is, like, I don't think much actually influenced him from these scripts. There are a couple things that I've noticed. The Adlam script, which is for the Fula language, or Fulfulde, Fulani, there's a lot of names for this. It's a widely spoken language from Senegal all the way to Sudan. I did see some similarities with the lowercase letters for Minim Dag Noore and Adlam. But there aren't any corresponding vocalic similarities. And it might have just been pure coincidence, but that's still up for debate. Um, but the biggest similarity is because the inventor and a lot of people in Burkina Faso know Arabic and they learn Arabic from a young age. Also because of Ajami, which is just this modified Arabic script that started being used around like the 900s in Western, or actually across the entire continent. So because of the situation on the ground where there's so much exposure to Arabic for the user community, it's quite obvious why Arabic is the most influential on the creation of this script. For example, it has these semi-vowels slash vowels that we talked about earlier. They also employ these vowel diacritics that vocalize the base consonant. They also have these vowel lengtheners, like making ah to ah, etc., which also exists in Minim Dag Noore. There's also all of these allographs, which are the same, essentially the same phoneme, just represented. In the Arabic case, it's positional variation, but in the Minim Dag Noore case, it's only initially and in the final position. Nothing really changes in the middle, which is contrasted to Arabic. There's also these, oh, that broke. There's also these examples of letter extenders or tatwils or kashidas in Arabic and Persian. These also exist in the script. And there's also similar collation or alphabetical ordering, which follows the old Arabic collation. And that's exactly how the Minim Dag Noore script is also collated and recited and taught in schools. But the biggest and most obvious thing is that this script is also used to write Arabic language itself. So, for example, this is a document, or this is a book, and it's in this uppercase, right to left, Minim Dag Noore script, but it's not in the Moray language. This is in Arabic. Because again, the vast majority of this community are devout Muslims, so they have a lot of veneration for religious texts. And that's it. I tried to speed through it because there's a lot about the script, and I don't want to do anything. This is an example of when I first started talking with the community, trying to figure out how the uppercase script worked. So the top, just if you want to look at it for 10 more seconds, the top is a text from it's in the left to right uppercase, and you can kind of figure out how they vocalize everything with the marks underneath. So if you guys want, you can study what I studied. So thank you.